السلام علیکم ناظرین، آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں ریڈ لائن اسلام آباد اسٹوڈیو سے لائیو۔ ہم آپ کو بتا رہے ہیں کہ ابھی امریکہ کے صدر ڈونلڈ ٹرمپ نے جو پریس سے بات چیت کی ہے اس کے اندر اس نے واضح کر دیا ہے کہ آبنائے ہرمز جس مدعے کے اوپر تمام جنگ کھڑی ہے اس کو ہم نے بند کرنے کا آغاز کر دیا ہے، نہ میں اس کو کھولوں گا اور نہ جب تک امریکہ کہے گا یہاں سے کوئی شپ گزرے گی۔ کیا واقعتاً امریکہ کے پاس اتنی عددی اور نیول قوت موجود ہے کہ آبنائے ہرمز کو جھٹ سے وہ بند کر دے؟ اس کے اوپر دوسرے ممالک کا کیا رد عمل ہے؟ آج پاکستان کے اندر اسلام آباد ٹاکس کے بعد بہت بڑی ڈپلومیٹک ایکٹیویٹی رہی، 6 سے زیادہ ممالک کے نمائندگان کے ساتھ وزیر اعظم اور وزیر خارجہ کی بات چیت ہوئی، اور ہمیں وزیر دفاع یہ بھی بتا رہے ہیں بین السطور کہ اسلام آباد ٹاکس کا جو پہلا راؤنڈ ہے وہ ختم ہوا ہے، یہ ان ممکن ہے کہ ہم آپس میں بات کرتے رہیں اور ایک اور راؤنڈ شروع ہو جائے۔ ڈونلڈ ٹرمپ نے اپنی اس بات چیت کے اندر یہ بھی انڈیکیٹ کیا کہ اس وقت جو جنگ بندی ہے وہ اپنی جگہ پر موجود ہے، اگرچہ ہم نے ایران کا نیول حصار کر لیا ہے، یہاں سے وہ 1 گیلن تیل بھی باہر نہیں بھیج سکتا۔ ایران کی طرف سے یہ بیان کیا گیا ہے کہ کوئی بھی ملک اگر آبنائے ہرمز کو بند کرے گا تو دنیا کے اندر معاشی تباہی اور بربادی کا باعث بنے گا۔ تو آپ کو اس وقت ایک کلاسک سٹیل میٹ کی سچویشن نظر آتی ہے جب تمام چیزیں اپنی جگہ پر موجود ہیں، کچھ خرابی کی طرف مائل ہیں لیکن حتمی طور پر شکل اختیار نہیں کر رہی۔ تو آج کے پروگرام میں ہم آپ کو بتائیں گے کہ دنیا اس معاملے کو کیسے دیکھ رہی ہے۔ ہمارے اسٹوڈیو کے اندر 3 محترم ریپرزینٹیوز موجود ہیں، پاکستان میں وہ آئی ہوئی ہیں اور ان تینوں نے ان تمام معاملات کو اسلام آباد ٹاک سمیت یہاں پر کور کیا۔ تھینک یو آل 3 آف یو۔ لیٹ می انٹروڈیوس یو ون بائی ون۔ وی ہیو کیٹلین Donbos, who is a foreign policy and national security reporter, has been reporting and tweeting extensively from the venue of Islamabad talks. Thank you very much for doing that. We got a lot of insights from that. And then we have Tanya Gursuzian. Tanya is a journalist, writer, editor, commentator, has been associated with many reputable international organizations. Al Jazeera has worked for TRT and also does brilliant analysis, has been reporting on the Middle East for a long time. Thank you very much for being with us. And now we have Laurie A. Watkins, who is a former advisor to Barack Obama, but that's not her sole claim to fame. She does foreign policy analysis and understands the dynamics of Washington politics like nobody's business. Tanya, thank you so, Laurie, thank you so very much for being with us. We're also joined now by, with your permission, I would want to take my viewers to Washington, where we have an Urdu conversation with one of our correspondents and our colleagues, ماروی سرمد, who's joining us. ماروی, بہت شکریہ آپ نے ہمیں جوائن کیا. یہ بتائیے گا کہ ابھی آپ نے ڈونلڈ ٹرمپ کی بات چیت سنی، اسلام آباد کے اندر تو اسلام آباد ٹاکس کے بعد کا ماحول بنا ہوا ہے. واشنگٹن کے اندر جہاں پہ آپ بیٹھی ہیں وہاں پر اسلام آباد کی ٹاکس کے بعد کیا بات ہو رہی ہے؟ کیا جو سٹوری لائن ہے وہ اسلام آباد ٹاک سے آگے نکل کر اسٹریٹ آف ہرمز کے بلاکیڈ کے اوپر چلی گئی ہے یا ہم وہیں پر کھڑے ہیں؟
ابھی دیکھیے، کچھ کہنا اس لیے مشکل ہے کہ جب آپ کے ہاں پاکستان کے اندر یہ ٹاکس ہو رہی تھی اور پورا میڈیا، پوری دنیا کا میڈیا صرف اور صرف ٹاکس کی بات کر رہا تھا، تو یہاں پر میلانیا ٹرمپ کی جو گفتگو انہوں نے اسی شام کی تھی اس کے اوپر بات ہو رہی تھی، یا پھر پریزیڈنٹ ٹرمپ جو UFC کی ریسلنگ دیکھ رہے تھے مارکو روبیو کے ساتھ، ان کی بات ہو رہی تھی، اور ساتھ میں کچھ بات ایران US ٹاکس کی بھی ہو رہی تھی. اس وقت جو صورتحال ہے طلعت صاحب وہ یہ ہے کہ ایک طرف تو بہت غصہ ہے ڈیموکریٹس میں اور کچھ ریپبلکنز میں بھی، کرسچن ایونجیلکس ہیں ان کے اندر بھی، رائٹ ونگ کنزرویٹیوز میں بھی ایک عمومی غصہ ہے کہ ہم شاید یعنی امریکہ شاید یہ جنگ ہار چکا ہے، ٹاکس بھی کامیاب نہیں ہو سکی ہیں. JD وینس جن کے بارے میں کہا جاتا ہے وہ جہاں بھی جاتے ہیں وہ کام خراب کر کے آتے ہیں، چاہے وہ وکٹر اوربان کا الیکشن ہو یا پچھلی بار پوپ سے ملنے گئے تھے تو وہ زیادہ بیمار ہو گئے تھے، ان کی ڈیتھ ہو گئی تھی، اور اب جو ہے ایران اور US ٹاکس کے لے گئے اور اس کے بعد یہ ایسی خبر لے کر آئے، تو وہ ایک مذاق کا موضوع بنے ہوئے ہیں. مگر دوسری سائڈ پہ ابھی जब हम बात कर रहे हैं, अभी से कोई आधा घंटा पहले हिलरी क्लिंटन साहबा ने बहुत तफसीली बात की, एक तकरीबन 40 मिनट का इंटरव्यू दिया है। और उन्होंने, आप ये याद रखें कि हिलरी क्लिंटन वो हैं जिन्होंने ईरान की न्यूक्लियर साइट्स के ऊपर हमले की हिमायत की थी पिछली बार। अब इस बार वो ये कह रही हैं कि ये बहुत ही थॉटलेस किस्म का कोई स्ट्रैटेजी नहीं है, और ये वो एको कर रही हैं बहुत से और लोगों की भी, जो पॉलिटिक्स में, मीडिया में, सोशल मीडिया के अंदर जो इन्फ्लुएंसर्स हैं, उनके पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू को, कि ये एक इसमें कोई स्ट्रैटेजी नहीं थी, कोई प्लानिंग नहीं थी, और जो टीम वहां गई हुई थी उसका कोई एक्सपीरियंस नहीं था इस किस्म की टॉक्स का। जो एक्चुअल जिसको जाना चाहिए था वो रेसलिंग देख रहा था, जो कि मार्को रूबियो है, जो एक्चुअल सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट है। किसी ने यहां तक भी कहा, तलत साहब, कि अगर ये स्टोरी लाइन नेटफ्लिक्स के किसी प्ले राइट ने लिखी होती तो उसको फायर कर दिया जाता, कि एक इतना बड़ा इवेंट हो रहा है और उसमें सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट और प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ दैट कंट्री वो एक रेसलिंग का मैच दिख रहे हैं, और एक एब्सोल्युटली जो है, जिनको कोई तजुर्बा नहीं है, कोई डिप्लोमेटिक क्रेडेंशियल्स नहीं है, बल्कि जेरेड कुशनर की तो शायद आपको इल्म होगा, जेरेड कुशनर जो है उनकी तो सिक्योरिटी क्लियरेंस तक नहीं है, बिकॉज ही डज नॉट होल्ड एनी ऑफिस। लिहाजा इसके ऊपर बहुत से क्वेश्चंस किए जा रहे हैं। एक रो खन्ना की जो है रेजोल्यूशन, वो इंट्रोड्यूस हो चुकी है, जिसपे वोटिंग इसी हफ्ते के आखिर में होनी है, जिसमें ट्रम्प को कहा गया है कि 30 डेज के अंदर ये जंग जो है इसको खत्म किया जाए, और हर एक्शन के लिए कांग्रेस से जो है वो अप्रूवल ली जाए। तो इस वक्त हालात यहाँ पे है कि इंटरनल जो है वो बहुत ही ज्यादा माहौल गर्म हो चुका है। इलेक्शंस जो है वो सर पर है, गवर्नर के इलेक्शंस जो है वो उसकी कैंपेन चल रही है। लिहाजा इंटरनली जो है वो ट्रम्प बहुत ज्यादा प्रेशर।
बहुत कुछ हो रहा है। जिस किस्म का फोकस हमारा और दुनिया का इन टॉक्स के ऊपर है, रहा है और इस मुद्दे पर आया, मैं वाशिंगटन में लगता नहीं है कि सारा फोकस उस पर। आपका बहुत शुक्रिया। ओके, दिस इट इज दैट वाशिंगटन एंड यूएस रियली इज डिस्ट्रैक्टेड with Malana's video and Trump and Marco Rubio watching wrestling matches while the talks are going on over here, to Hillary Clinton also kind of revisiting her position on Iran nuclear sites attacks. So much is happening, and the argument that she was giving based on her information and chat with a few people was that people are really getting worried as to where this war is going. That is a sum total of what she's saying. So let me take that as a lead and start with you, Lori. We are focused, I mean, all of you guys and us were really focused on Islamabad talks. Is that the only story in Washington? Does Trump really have that kind of focus that we think he has? Or does he have other dynamics that are driving him?
This president is extremely chaotic in his rationale and his thinking and his policies, and it's really hard for anyone to try to get inside of his head about what he's thinking. And I think that's the problem that the majority of Americans are having right now, especially when they have been still begging for him to explain why the United States joined Israel or was coerced, that's up for debate as well, into engaging in this war with Iran at this exact moment in time. What was the emerging threat? What is the strategy moving forward, and why are you choosing to do this, and how long is this going to play out? Because Americans, I will tell you, there's an affordability crisis. Americans are suffering economically, and most of the time they probably wouldn't pay as much attention to what's going on overseas in the Middle East and foreign policy, but people are laser focused on this right now because it is affecting their bottom line, and that's why I think more people than before are paying attention to this, and it's also hurting him extremely with regards to politically. And so, yeah, it's hard to see what he's focused on. There are many distractions, but others think that sometimes he creates these distractions to take the focus off maybe Epstein, or maybe that he's suffering in the polls, or maybe that these tariffs are hurting people, the affordability crisis, like I'm saying. There's a cadre of issues that he uses these distractions for, but this is serious business. We are talking about people's lives here. We are talking about the global economy, and we are talking about global supply chains. I mean, as well. Not long ago, he was talking about dropping the nukes. Yes, and he obliterating said that an entire civilization. That was a suggestion, but then he says that on us or elsewhere, and then look at how the stocks will fall. So he talks about nuclear weapons as if he's talking about choice. But you make a very interesting point. Chaotic, we know, but Tanya, is there a method in this madness?
because this is not the first time US is involved in a foreign crisis, not the first time they're trying to blockade a country, not the first time they've had a war, in the Middle East particularly. What's so different with this crisis, apart from the president being so chaotic?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said there's a method to the madness, because I'm not inclined to believe that this is just off the top of his head stuff that he tweets. No, I think that there's a very deliberate intention to disseminate misinformation, disinformation, and to distract people. I think that one of the defining characteristics of this war has been an unprecedented level of misinformation that's been circulating everywhere. So people just don't know what to believe anymore. Between the misinformation and the manufactured facts, images, the fake news, it's hard enough for politicians to tell what's right or what's true and what's not, let alone the guy sitting in his living room and scrolling, what do you say, doom scrolling, or watching the news. So I think there is a deliberate attempt to create a kind of fog so people don't know what's going on.
But it's also always putting the shoe on the wrong foot. I'm just looking at this report from his press conference. He says that we can't let a country blackmail or extort the world. He's talking about Iran. But for a second I thought he was talking about the US itself. I mean, he said that I want to open Strait of Hormuz by closing it. This is unbelievable. And the Strait of Hormuz was open to everybody before the war started. But
with no toll fee, by the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. But Kathleen, you have been reporting from Islamabad. This was serious business, right? I mean, at least we now have the Iranian version of it. They have said that we came this close to it. Everything was almost settled. And then the US maximized the position. And they still haven't really said no to it. So your take on how serious were the Islamabad talks?
I want to go back to what Tanya was saying about misinformation and a lot of misinformation being out there. That was something that I took very seriously when I was doing the live reporting from Islamabad as the talks were undergoing. There was so much misinformation going left and right. A lot of that being put out by Iran to particularly, sway people to think the talks are going one way or another. It's so important to cut through that noise and only listen to official sources, or at least just responsible journalism is so important right now. And I think that, But
if official sources, official sources from Pakistan were also sounding very positive. They continue to sound very positive. Today we have the Pakistani Defense Minister suggest that this was just the first round, and he does not rule out the possibility of yet another round. That's also the kind of narrative that we're hearing from Pakistan. So at which point did you think that the talks probably would yield something?
I think you just nailed it on the head. I landed in Islamabad and I did not have great hopes for these talks. I cover this. I do this every day. I've covered lots of peace talks. I cover Ukraine very often. They haven't gone anywhere. And certainly you don't wrap up a war in a day. And so it was very interesting to me to land here and start talking to people, and there was so much optimism that we were going to solve the war here, and I so appreciate that optimism, and I think it says something really special about the Pakistani spirit. But when you're looking at it, I mean, this is diplomacy. This is very difficult. This is not something that just whips up. And so I caution that optimism about this being cleared up. We all want it to happen, but it's not going to happen until it happens.
Yeah, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. But could it have happened? That's a million-dollar question that we don't want to get into. That's speculative. But is there a chance now that Trump has taken the goalpost to the next level? He has announced a blockade. And before the program, we were talking, you asked a very pointed question, almost rhetorical, with a rhetorical flourish, which is, has he actually blocked it? And that got me thinking, I don't know. He says he's blocked it, but we're looking at the data. Some ships have already passed today. Has he moved the goalpost? Has it gone beyond the prospect that Islamabad talks offered? Is it a different story now? Is it about Strait of Hormuz blockade?
I don't understand from a military standpoint how you can block it without involving our military or putting boots on the ground, specifically maybe Karg Island, for example. And there is zero appetite from members of Congress, including members of Congress in the Republican Party, who have the majority right now in the House and Senate. And overwhelmingly, the American public is against putting boots on the ground. You've also seen this president, through way of Pete Hegseth, say that they've not even test ballooned this. They're making an announcement that there's going to be a federal data registry for men between the ages of 18 and 25 that will be drafted, automatically drafted into the military. Into what? War? Into being sent to the Middle East, specifically to Iran. You cannot just take U.S. naval vessels from places that they were already stationed in theater that are critically important to us and move them like that into the region. I mean, this takes weeks upon weeks.
And demining also takes a very long time.
It takes a long time to demine as well. That could also take weeks upon months. And it's putting our U.S. military in danger. Because if you cannot guarantee that they will not be harmed by doing these patrol actions, and do we have any allies that are going to help us patrol? That's also been, I don't know if it's disinformation, things that we have heard while we've been here, that maybe some countries are going to come to the table to take on that role. These are all speculatory, but they're very important, and we need some answers.
But has the storyline
It should be the president who's able to provide those answers.
He won't provide you with the answers. He only spoke about Pope Leo and how he thinks that he shouldn't be there. But let's not expect answers from the president. Tanya, do you have the mic on, right?
I do.
You still have it?
Yes.
What about your mic?
Yes.
The mics are on. So is there a problem with the mics? The mics are on. But tell us about, has the Middle East changed? Because today there's another important development. The Iranians and the Saudis are now talking. And it was not long ago after the Jubail attack that Saudis looked to be really livid. And Pakistanis had to kind of intervene, calm the nerves down. But now the Saudis are talking to the Iranians. And a lot of the Middle Eastern Gulf countries' oil that passes through Strait of Hormuz now depends on, theoretically at least, Trump approval. And he's saying, I'm going to be selling my oil. About 121 vessels are going to the US, loading up what he calls sweet oil and gas. What is it about? Is it about selling your own oil, choking the Gulf? Is it really about Iran?
Well, I want to go back a little bit. You guys were having this exchange earlier where I was reminded of something I read a while ago, that in negotiations, you don't get what you want, you get what you negotiate. So we had these talks here, we saw these talks here in Islamabad, and of course there was a flurry of reports about how the talks had failed. I just don't know how people expected a decades-old conflict to be solved in one sitting. Mm-hmm. I think it was pretty clear to most reasonable observers that this was going to be a process rather than just a one-day, look, we got them together and boom, everything was ironed out. So I think what's happening right now is they had the first session and there's going to have to be a follow-up. In that period,
are you sure of that? There's going to be a follow-up, like like indirect talks or direct talks or mediated?
It hasn't been announced,
but your sense is that
the sense is that that's going to happen because there was a lot left. I mean, there was some mixed comments that came out of it, but one got the sense that right now they've gone back home and they're looking at increasing their leverage. So there's a lot of showmanship, posturing. They want to go to the next round with more leverage. So anything that happens now, I think, that's my read anyway, is to try and tilt the balance in their favor.
And in between, a lot can happen. We again talk about the blockade of Strait of Hormuz. The Chinese have spoken about the need to extend the ceasefire. They have spoken about the need for the Strait of Hormuz to be a continuously flowing goods and services international passage. So the Chinese are going to weigh in on this subject. And when Trump was asked today, he said that I'm on the best of terms with President Xi, and the summit is going to go on. But back to the Islamabad talks, because that's where it all started. I mean, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Islamabad talks. Tanya, you spoke about the process, but then J.D. Vance just left, right? If it was a process, if that's what the American approach was, you would leave the room with the sense that, I'm leaving the first round. He said, final offer, take it or leave it. Is that like sort of, downtown Manhattan real estate dealer telling you, take it or leave it, if not, then probably I'll renegotiate? What is it? Is there hope now after J.D. Vance said final offer on the table?
Well, I'm not a real estate developer. I don't know.
No,
but...
mercifully, that's why you're here and you talk about serious business.
And maybe real estate developers shouldn't be in these kinds of negotiations when they're not experienced diplomats.
But I do believe that, right there at the end of J.D. Vance's discussion, he said, now it's in their hands. He said something to that effect. I wish I remembered the exact quote, but he basically put it out there that now it's up to Iran to come and see what their response is going to be. And so now you see I wasn't necessarily surprised to see the blockade happen, because that's amping up the pressure. That's trying to get them to come back and respond to that proposal. I don't know. I haven't seen any official response. Have you?
No.
No. So we're still awaiting that response, really, from Iran.
From the Iranians?
From the Iranians.
Yeah, I mean, no response is also a response. Normally, when the Iranians want to close a chapter, they would close it decisively. The fact that they haven't really closed the chapter, and they've spoken about, goodwill begetting goodwill and enmity begetting enmity. I mean, I think that was a statement by the foreign minister. So you still see the final offer being really final, or is it, as she said, amping up the pressure, trying to get something out of it? Because Trump also said that I don't want 90%. I don't want 95%. I want it all. So it's, take it or leave it. Is that the final thing, or do you see life beyond that? Diplomacy being the art of the possible.
I would say, well, guess what, Mr. President? We did have the Strait 100% open and free-flowing before you did this. It was. There wasn't any tolls, there wasn't any bombings of one another, there weren't innocent civilians, cultural sites, and U.S. service members being killed. That wasn't happening. And now we find ourselves in this place. And to build off what Tanya was saying, in negotiations, J.D. Vance was very clear. He said, he came out in that press conference that Caitlin was talking about post-discussions, and he said, we gave them our list and they didn't agree to it, and so we're done. That is not how you negotiate. It's just not. That means here's our demands, and if you don't say yes, then the talks are over. Well, clearly the talks are not over.
That's not the process that diplomats talk about. That's like sort of,
and that is
holding
where
you by the
there's
throat
a
and saying,
disconnect. That we're not dealing with seasoned diplomats.
Yeah. So do you see any life beyond Islamabad talks now?
I do. Maybe there's an Islamabad 2.0. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be in some other location. I think this would be a perfect place, and I wish it would have happened maybe in the next few days, because all of these journalists would have still been here and they would have been able to report and not go home. Exactly. It would have maximized the truth coming out, competent, reliable reporting and sourcing coming out. But back to the Strait, I think they came to the proposal with two main issues, which was nuclear was number 1 or 2, and the Strait was, equally balanced. I think coming out of this, Donald Trump maybe fully realizes the leverage that Iran has, which is the Strait. So to come in and say, this is still about nuclear, that's not the focus anymore, and it shouldn't be the focus. I think it should be the Strait, and now he's trying to kind of backpedal.
Even now it is the Strait.
And say,
it's not the nuclear.
Okay, well now we're shutting it down completely. Well then, I would say again, Talit, why didn't you do this 7 weeks ago then? Why didn't you make this threat of closing the Strait 7 weeks ago? We are at a pivotal point where we have actually made progress. There is still a temporary ceasefire.
Yeah, okay, I need to take a break here, and the program will be incomplete without me asking you, what did Pakistan get out of it? Your experience, or what did Pakistan get out of it? And I'm going to ask you some critical questions. We have been tiptoeing around some very complex regional alliances. And if this erupts into a big issue, our fine tightrope walking will be called out. So gather your thoughts on this as I take a break. प्रोग्राम में खुशामदीद नाज़रीन। दुनिया भर हमारे मामलात को कैसे देख रही है, हमारे पास तजिया निगार और रिपोर्टर्स मौजूद हैं, Tanya, Kathleen and Laurie. Again, thank you very much for waiting. Normally we don't have such long ad breaks, but we wanted to have a concentrated talk, and therefore we combined the ads and turned it into a 10-minute long duration segment. So I start. What did Pakistan get out of it? Is this event the only thing that Pakistan would become famous for, or is there more to it?
Is that to me?
Anybody can answer that. Well, what about, let me start with you.
Yeah, sure. I think that Pakistan has had a huge opportunity to go to the world stage, as present itself as real negotiators for peace. I mean, this neutrality in the Middle East is incredibly needed. This is a country that can host these talks, can get the trust of both the United States and Iran. That's something very unique to Pakistan, and I think that's something that that is going to get a lot of name credibility, let alone actual, future talks possibly.
Tanya, why us? I mean, I'm sure you have heard this question many a time. I got this question many a time, and I answered that as well. But I'm not here to answer questions. I'm here to ask questions. Could it not have happened in Turkey or Egypt or elsewhere?
Well, I think let's also remember that not too long ago, Pakistan also hosted a talk between Egypt, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. And that sort of gave rise to speculation, conversations about, is there a new axis being formed? Is there perhaps discussions over forming another union, association, alliance, because the existing ones don't seem to have been able to make a difference. I mean, I don't want to name and shame, but this has been going on for some time, and these organizations have simply been unable, perhaps not unlike the UN, to issue anything other than grave concern. And Pakistan, of all countries, was the one to convene these talks, not the traditional heavyweights of the region. As for what Pakistan gets out of this, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. It's prestige, gravitas, a kind of legitimacy as a global player. But I think, interestingly, it also resurrects the idea of military diplomacy. And this is something that, of course, is not new. You've had other military leaders who have brought peace before, and it kind of underscores that reality that sometimes those who know war the best are perhaps those who can end wars. Those who are trained for war are the ones who can best end wars. So that's kind of what we're seeing here, because it was actually the Pakistani military that seems to have taken the lead on this.
Look, I have an IR background, so therefore I tend to sort of see it from a different light. It's like saying think tank. Tanks don't think. Military diplomacy. The reason you have diplomacy is because you have militaries, right? Militaries create conflicts and diplomats solve them. But here you have a great oxymoronic combination of military diplomacy. So tell us, what did we get out of it and why Pakistan?
So I'd love to build on something that Tanya said about the military. I think a lot of credit needs to go to Field Marshal Asim Munir, okay? Because out of all the people, Trump trusts this individual. He trusts this man. After this visit that he had in Washington, D.C. last year, they formed a very close special bond. And we hear how Trump louds these people of, I'm very close to them, or they're my good friend. And he congratulated and gave a lot of praise in a tweet post discussions to the Prime Minister, to Asim Munir, for even being able to help convene these kinds of talks and negotiations. So I think that his nerves of steel, him being this architect, of the region, of the Middle East, of trying to negotiate and bring peace to the region, I think that he had a lot to be able to do with this on behalf of Trump, because Trump trusts him to be able to convene these talks here. And I think that goes a long way.
I think this part of the program is going to go viral, and I don't have to tell you why. But let me still build on this argument.
I'm just reporting what.
No, I appreciate that. No, we heard that. And that's a solid assessment. That is not to belittle the importance of what you said. But there's another take on it as well, and I was sort of going to the reverse round, starting from you. Trump, we also know, is transactional.
Yes.
He's a deal maker. He himself introduces himself as a deal maker. He must have some utility in his mind for Pakistan. So is it Pakistan's ties with China? Because Pakistan moves in all directions. It's connected with Iran, China, Saudi, Kuwait, Qatar. No, not so much UAE, but Turkey. So is it because Pakistan is so centrally located that US probably sees a lot of utility, apart from the great liking that they have for each other?
In my assessment, Pakistan is placed geographically in a very sometimes I would say precarious location, right?
Tell us about that.
Yes, I don't have to tell you, right? But for others who are watching from around the world, because I know you have millions and millions of viewers that are watching this right now, that has a lot to do with this, and it should. And I'm very impressed because you don't really see a lot of countries being able to play diplomatically, play well with so many others. I guess that's how I can phrase it. And they've been able to achieve that. For a long time, let's be honest, they weren't. And now they have emerged as this global player, as this convener, as this diplomatic friend to a lot of different nations. And as Caitlin said earlier, they've remained neutral. That's not easy to do, Talit.
Okay, but our neutrality is also has limits, Tanya, right? We are bound by a defense agreement with Saudi Arabia, and we were called out, and that's why we didn't want to go that path. But come back into this. Is it transient or is it permanent? Is it like, Islamabad talks related or Iran conflict related? Or do you see Pakistan emerge on a more long-term basis as a place where you could actually resolve global issues and talk about issues that you can't talk elsewhere?
Well, I think that's up to Pakistan to build on what it has achieved. I mean, there's momentum right now, and I think everyone in Pakistan seems, at every level, is excited that, oh my God, here we are, we're on the map. They're finally seeing us the way we really are, and we're rebranding ourselves from what we were once known for, and now we're, so there's a lot of that happening, but there's a lot of trouble in the neighborhood. Yeah. And I don't want to get into every single one of them, but it's challenging because you got to put your own house in order, and that's underway, and perhaps everything's kind of coming together right now.
That's the best part of it, or the most interesting, exciting part of it. Pakistan is trying to resolve these global issues, at the same time fighting practically a war on two fronts. And the world doesn't really realize how difficult it is, because you can't take your eye off from the northwestern border. You certainly can't take an eye off from the eastern border, and you've got only two eyes. And then you have to get two eyes on Islamabad talks. Your experience here, of course, we Pakistanis get excited, and we have discovered now that the world is finally seeing the other side of Pakistan as well. But tell us, you think is it going to be the new Switzerland of Southwest Asia?
I think to the point earlier, it's up to Pakistan. It is up to Pakistan, but I will say that the experience of coming here is transformative. You really get a new image of Pakistan when you actually come here. Pakistan has
what image did you have of us? Well, let's have a contrast.
You can probably imagine having grown up as a child during 9/11. Pakistan has a PR problem, and being able to come here, I think when we were talking about earlier, what are some of the things that Pakistan got out of this? Name recognition and a new connotation with who Pakistan is. That's a huge win for the country, and that's worth it alone.
That's worth it alone. Quickly, working it backwards, I don't want you to forecast the future. Nobody has any crystal ball that can explain the president's, predilections.
And we're not God like Trump,
Yeah, exactly. So are you more hopeful? Because we were scrolling through a lot of news that is floating around, coming from the Chinese. Our own journalist reported, Kamran Yusuf, who's actually quite well connected. And I want to get him on the show, but he's busy elsewhere. And his last part of this post is, historic deal still on the cards. He says, naval blockade is a big developing story. It was almost as if he's responding to our program. But do you get a sense that there's still a lot of positivity around the next round?
Absolutely. The fact that conversations are still happening is brilliant, because it should be. That's again how diplomacy works, right, ladies? Like, this doesn't happen in a vacuum, it doesn't happen overnight, and it can take a while. And for anyone to think otherwise, they are naive and they are being short-sighted, and I would go so far as to say they're not an expert in this. And they should leave it up to the people who are experts and rely on trusted, reliable news outlets and reporters that are reporting incredibly well on this, and focus on those facts there. But the fact that we still have a temporary ceasefire, the fact that the tennis ball is going back and forth, I think is another achievement. And I have to always hope for peace. Always I'm going to be an eternal optimist. I have to be.
Tanya, quickly winding it up and then getting a word from you. You guys should then stick around, perhaps, extend your visas. You never know. Talks may be happening. You don't want to be on your way out when the talks are happening here.
Do you want us back, guys?
Well, I was hoping for this, so I do have a multiple entry visa. So I will be back for the second round.
Yeah.
I think the right word here is, the right term is cautiously optimistic. I think the fact that they actually came here to talk shows that there is a willingness on both sides.
A lot of opportunity. Time is up almost. So yes, no, positive or?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I have to leave it there. Thank you very much for being with us. Nazeen, आज ट्विटर वीडियो नहीं चला, कल चलाएंगे.